it's pretty clear what Tassie is crying out for.
Loud and clear.
Do tell.
A new stadium.
You're not going to make an announcement?
This is Tasmania here in Hobart's last possible urban waterfront development site.
I'm proud and excited to announce the awarding of the 19th licence to play in the AFL and AFLW competitions to Tasmania.
What did the Prime Minister just say?
This is Tasmania here in Hobart's last possible urban waterfront development site.
When is the announcement of a new stadium an announcement for a new waterfront urban development? When the politics gets messy. Welcome to episode 2, and probably the last, of This is Hobart. For the past 2 weeks, most of the conversations around Hobart have been about those two announcements you've just seen. The announcement that Tasmania is to get the 19th AFL licence, and that with it we get a new stadium funded by both the Commonwealth and state governments, as well as a little bit of funding from the AFL itself. On this episode of This is Hobart, we explore the announcements and the location of the new stadium and have a look at some of the reactions around the community.
Tasmania is a proud AFL state and has had long-held ambitions of joining the AFL. It is fair to say that the desire to join the AFL is supported by most Tasmanians and was up until recently supported by the three major political parties in the state, the Liberals, Labor and the Greens. However, in the last week, the Greens leader wrote to the AFL withdrawing their support for an AFL team because of the link to the need to build a new stadium and the associated costs, in a time when there is a housing, health and cost of living crisis in Australia and Tasmania. Labor remains committed to an AFL team but does not support the building of the new stadium. Thus, State Labor's absence from the Labor PM's announcement of funding. The politics is messy. For more than 40,000 years, Macquarie Point and Nipaluna, Hobart, was cared for by the Muwinina people. Then in 1804, Lutruwita, Tasmania, was invaded by English colonists. For First Nations people, their world changed. Despite a significant effort to remain on their land, the Palawa were deceived. By 1806, the first land grants for Macquarie Point were made, with the Crown taking back control of the land in 1821, building an orphan school, parade ground and slaughter yard. Thus begun over a century of industrial use of the land. Over time, significant amounts of land was reclaimed, increasing the size of the area. In 1826, a timber yard and shipbuilding slip was built on the site. Then in 1854, the Hobart Gas Company was established. In 1876, the mainline train was opened, bringing passengers as well as cargo from across Tasmania to the point. And in the 1880s, a sewage plant was established on the site. In 1978, the last passenger train rolled into Hobart from Wynyard, although freight trains continued until 2014, and the sewage plant remains, although it is also slated for removal. The Macquarie Point Development Corporation, a Tasmanian government agency, was established through the Macquarie Point Development Corporation Act in 2012. According to their website, the corporation was created to plan, facilitate and manage the remediation and redevelopment of the former Macquarie Point rail yards and encourage interim activity on site while progressing longer-term development. Due to low levels of understanding of environmental protection at the time, the site's previous industrial users left significant pollution within the soil and groundwater. The corporation has made two significant announcements on proposals for Macquarie Point. The first in 2014 from Sir Tim Smith, who was the co-founder of the Eden Project in Cornwall. He wanted to build a major complex at the site showcasing Antarctic plants. He was promising to fund the $40 to $50 million project privately and claimed it would be one of the wonders of the world. The second announcement came in 2016 from the Museum of Old and New Art in Hobart. Mona announced plans to transform the industrial site into a cultural precinct celebrating Tasmania's Aboriginal history. The plan included an art park, a major fire and light installation dedicated to celebrating 40,000 years of continuous culture in Tasmania, and a Tasmanian Aboriginal History Centre.
It doesn't make sense.
All right, so there are a few problems.
Lack of population, too few events, distance, fixed costs, where to put it.
But those negatives are far outweighed by the positives.
I don't have any.
Tasmanians are split on the most recent announcement for the Macquarie Point Stadium. It is difficult to find polling that is not slanted by the source either being highly in favour or against the stadium. So it is a challenge to accurately say how many people are in support or against. As previously stated though, many more want an AFL team than don't. Detractors point to two stadiums in the state already being used for AFL games, by Hawthorn in Launceston and North Melbourne at Bellerive. They point out that Bellerive is less than 3 kilometres from the proposed new stadium. They are also concerned that of the $750 million slated for the stadium, that it's likely to blow out to over $1 billion before the stadium is completed, stating that the money would be better spent on health and housing. $1 billion is a lot of money for a state of just over 500,000 people. Proponents talk about a previous review on the viability of Bellerive, which found significant drawbacks, including its proximity to residential premises and the lack of facilities within the stadium to support large crowds. They also mention the fact that there are other potential uses, including for large entertainment events, especially if the stadium has a roof. Others are trying to make the best of the situation by working with the state government to get the best results for the community, including restaurants, bars, and an integrated transport hub for buses and ferries. The Tasmanian RSL sub-branches have written to the state government against the stadium because of its proximity to the cenotaph, as have the Aboriginal community and their supporters, some of whom still want to see a Truth and Reconciliation Park. Whilst the announcements have been made, it's fair to say that it's not endgame yet, with state government elections to be held before the first hole is dug, and protesters already mobilising.